I'm standing in my driveway, completely frozen, watching an HOA board member literally drive away with my 6-month-old daughter strapped in her car seat. My phone's in my hand, 911 is already dialing, and all I can think is, this psycho just committed a federal crime over $347 in HOA fees. You think you've heard nightmare HOA stories? Trust me, you haven't heard anything yet. Before I get into how this absolute nightmare went down, smash that like button right now, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your blood boil. And hit subscribe, because if you think HOS can't destroy your life, you need to hear this. Alright, let's get into it. So this whole disaster starts in Riverside County, California, one of those cookie-cutter suburban developments where every house looks exactly the same, and the HOA acts like they're running a military dictatorship instead of a neighborhood. My name's Marcus, I'm 32, and my wife Jessica and I had just bought our first home here 6 months earlier. We've got a baby daughter, Zoe, who was 6 months old when this went down. Now, our HOA board president was this woman named Patricia Hendricks, mid-50s, blonde bob haircut, the kind of person who lives for finding violations in your front yard. I'm talking, she'd measure your grass with a ruler type of crazy. But we didn't know just how unhinged she really was. Here's where it starts. We were late on one quarterly HOA payment. Not even that late, like 3 weeks. We'd been slammed with medical bills from Zoe's birth, and that $347 payment just slipped through the cracks. We weren't dodging it. We just missed the deadline. But Patricia, she took it personally. And what she did next would land her in federal prison. But you're not ready for how this escalates. It was a Tuesday morning, around 10 a.m. Jessica had taken Zoe to a doctor's appointment, and I was working from home. I hear this aggressive pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. I open it, and there's Patricia with 2 other board members, Greg and Susan, standing behind her like backup muscle. Patricia doesn't even say hello. She just shoves a piece of paper in my face and goes, "You're in violation of the HOA covenant. Payment was due 3 weeks ago. You owe $347, plus a $75 late fee. Pay now, or we're placing a lien on your property." I'm like, "Patricia, we're getting you the money. We've been dealing with some medical expenses." She cuts me off. "I don't care about your excuses. Rules are rules. You agreed to this when you bought the house." Now, I'm trying to stay calm, right? So I say, "Look, I'll have the payment to you by Friday. That's 3 days. Can we just work this out like adults?" And this woman, I kid you not, she looks me dead in the eye and says, "Adults pay their bills on time, Marcus. Adults don't make excuses. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow, or we're filing the lien and adding a $200 daily penalty." I'm standing there thinking, is this chick for real? Over $347. But here's where I made my first mistake. I got heated. I said, "You know what, Patricia? You need to back off. We'll get you your money, but you don't get to come to my house and disrespect me like this." Her face went red. She stepped closer, way too close, in my personal space, and said, "You don't want to make an enemy out of me." Then she turned around and left with her little entourage. I closed the door thinking, okay, crazy HOA lady, whatever. I'll pay the fee, this'll blow over. I had no idea how wrong I was, because Patricia was just getting started. That night, I told Jessica what happened. She was stressed about it, but we both agreed, let's just pay the fee and move on. So the next morning, Wednesday, I went online to submit the payment through the HOA portal. Payment rejected. I tried again. Rejected again. I called the HOA management company, and they told me that Patricia had locked our account, and we could only pay in person with a cashier's check. She was making this as difficult as possible. Fine, whatever. I went to the bank, got a cashier's check for $422. The original fee, plus her ridiculous late charge, and I drove over to Patricia's house around 2 p.m. to hand-deliver it. She opened the door with this smug smile on her face. "Did you bring cash?" "I brought a cashier's check, like the management company said." "I prefer cash. I'm losing my patience now." "Patricia, this is a cashier's check. It's as good as cash. Take it." She looked at the check, then looked at me, and said, "The daily penalty started this morning. You now owe an additional $200. This check isn't enough." I snapped. "Are you kidding me? You locked my account yesterday. I couldn't pay online. You did this on purpose." She just smiled. "Should have paid on time." I wanted to scream, but instead, I said, "You know what? Keep the check. I'm filing a complaint with the management company and a lawyer. This is harassment." And that's when her expression changed. She got this cold, dead look in her eyes and said, "You're going to regret threatening me." I left, got in my car, drove home. Told Jessica we needed to lawyer up because this woman was unhinged. We had no idea that Patricia's revenge was already in motion, and it involved our baby daughter. The next day, Thursday, I was on the phone with a real estate attorney, explaining the situation. He told me that HOAs can be aggressive, but what Patricia was doing sounded like harassment, and we should document everything. So I started keeping records. I saved every email, every text, every piece of correspondence. Jessica and I decided we'd just pay the inflated fees to make this go away, and then we'd file a formal complaint afterward. But Patricia wasn't done. That afternoon, we got a letter in the mail, hand-delivered, not even mailed, stating that we were now in severe violation of HOA rules, and that a special hearing was being called for the following Tuesday. They were threatening to fine us $500 per day until we paid all outstanding fees, which they now claimed were over $1,000. Jessica was in tears. We'd been in this house for 6 months, and this psycho was trying to bankrupt us over a missed payment. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I started digging into Patricia's history. I went on our neighborhood Facebook group and posted a vague message, asking if anyone else had issues with the HOA board. And let me tell you, my inbox exploded. Turns out Patricia had been terrorizing neighbors for years. One couple had been fined $3,000 for painting their mailbox the wrong shade of beige. Another family was threatened with a lien because their trash cans were visible from the street for more than 2 hours after pickup. People were scared of her. She'd weaponized the HOA rules to control the entire neighborhood. And the craziest part, 2 people told me she'd been investigated by the management company before for misusing HOA funds, but nothing ever came of it. I'm thinking, okay, this woman is corrupt and vindictive. We need to be careful. But I didn't realize just how dangerous she really was. Because the next morning, Friday, everything went to hell. It's Friday morning. About 9:30 a.m. Jessica had just finished feeding Zoe and put her in the car seat because we were going to run some errands together. I was grabbing my wallet and keys when Jessica yelled from the garage, "Marcus, get out here." I ran outside, and Jessica's standing there, staring at our garage door. Someone had spray-painted in huge red letters, "Pay your bills, deadbeat." I'm standing there, jaw on the floor. Are you serious right now? Jessica's already calling the cops. I'm taking pictures, looking around to see if whoever did this is still nearby. And that's when I noticed Patricia's car parked at the end of our cul-de-sac, just sitting there, watching us. I walked toward her car, and she rolled down her window with this sick grin. "Having a bad morning. Did you do this?" I pointed at the garage. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Patricia, I'm calling the cops. This is vandalism. This is criminal." She laughed, literally laughed. "Call whoever you want. You're still in violation of the HOA covenant." The cops showed up about 20 minutes later. I showed them the spray paint, explained the situation with Patricia, pointed out that her car had been parked at the end of our street. They took a report, but they basically told us it'd be hard to prove anything without witnesses or cameras. Patricia drove off before the cops could talk to her. We were both shaken. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This woman was escalating into criminal behavior. Jessica wanted to move, like immediately, pack up and leave. But we'd just bought this house. We couldn't afford to just walk away. So we decided we'd pay the fees, avoid Patricia completely, and start looking into selling the house quietly in a few months. What we didn't know was that Patricia had already planned her next move, and it was going to be the most insane thing either of us had ever experienced. All right, if you're still watching, thank you, because what happens next is legitimately the craziest part of this entire story. Hit that like button if you're invested, and drop a comment if you think HOAs should be illegal. Saturday morning, one day after the garage vandalism. Jessica and I were on edge, but we were trying to keep things normal, for Zoe's sake. I decided to go to Home Depot to get some paint to cover the graffiti on the garage door. Jessica stayed home with Zoe. She was in the living room, working on her laptop, and Zoe was napping in her bassinet right next to her. Around 11 a.m., there's a knock on the door. Jessica checks the Ring camera. It's Patricia, and she's holding a manila folder. Jessica texted me immediately. Patricia's at the door. I'm not answering. Smart move. But Patricia didn't leave. She kept knocking. Then she started ringing the doorbell repeatedly. Zoe woke up and started crying. Jessica picked her up to calm her down, and that's when Patricia started yelling through the door. I know you're in there. I have documents you need to sign. Open the door. Jessica texted me again. She won't leave. Should I call the cops? I told her yes. Call them, I'm heading home. But Jessica made a mistake. A mistake any reasonable person might make. She opened the door with Zoe in her arms and said, Patricia, you need to leave. We're filing a restraining order against you. Patricia smiled. I just need you to sign these lien documents. We're not signing anything. Leave. And then Patricia did something that still makes my blood run cold. She looked at Zoe and said, such a sweet baby. It'd be a shame if Child Protective Services got involved. Jessica's face went white. What did you just say? Well, when parents can't afford their basic financial obligations, it raises questions about their ability to care for a child. Jessica slammed the door in her face. She was shaking, texting me. She just threatened to call CPS on us. I'm freaking out. Come home now. Was already speeding back. I called her and told her to lock all the doors. Don't open them for anyone. And if Patricia shows up again, film everything. I got home in 15 minutes. Patricia's car was gone. Jessica was in tears, holding Zoe, absolutely terrified. We called our lawyer immediately. He told us to document the threat, file for a restraining order on Monday, and absolutely do not engage with Patricia anymore. We thought that was the end of it. We thought we'd scared her off. We were so wrong. Because what Patricia did next wasn't just insane, it was a federal crime. Monday morning, I'm at work. Jessica's home with Zoe. Around 10:30 a.m., there's a knock on the door. Jessica checks the ring. It's a woman she doesn't recognize, mid-40s, wearing business casual clothes. Jessica opens the door with the chain still on. Can I help you? Hi, I'm Karen Voss, from the county assessor's office. We're doing a routine check on properties in the neighborhood. Can I come in for just a few minutes? Jessica's immediately suspicious. Do you have ID? The woman shows a badge. It looks official. Jessica's thinking, okay, maybe this is legit. She lets her in. The woman starts asking questions about the house. When we bought it, any renovations, blah blah blah. She's looking around, taking notes. And then she says, mind if I take a quick look at the back bedrooms? Just need to verify square footage. Jessica's uncomfortable, but she figures, okay, If this is official county business, whatever. She follows the woman down the hall. Here's where it goes sideways. Jessica had left Zoe in her bouncy seat in the living room. The woman walks past the living room, glances at Zoe, and says, "Oh, what a beautiful baby." Jessica says thanks, and they continue down the hall. The woman pretends to measure the bedrooms, takes a few more notes, and then says, "All right, I think I have everything I need. Thanks for your time." She walks back toward the front door. Jessica's following her. The woman opens the door, steps outside, and then Jessica hears the front door close behind her. She spins around. The woman is gone. The door's shut. And Jessica hears Zoe crying from inside the house. Jessica tries the door locked. She's locked out of her own house. She starts panicking, banging on the door, and that's when she sees it. The woman is walking out the side gate from our backyard, carrying Zoe in her car seat. Jessica screams. She's running toward the woman, yelling, "That's my baby. Put her down." The woman gets to a car parked on the street, a silver Honda, and starts strapping the car seat into the back. Jessica's screaming, "Someone call 911. She's kidnapping my baby." Neighbors start coming outside. The woman gets in the driver's seat and takes off. Jessica's hysterical. She's running after the car, screaming, sobbing. One of our neighbors calls 911, and Jessica calls me. I've never heard her sound like that. Pure terror. She's barely coherent. Someone took Zoe, a woman. She took her. Marcus, she took our baby. I'm losing my mind. I leave work immediately. I'm calling 911 while I'm driving. And the only thing I can think is, who would do this? Why? And then it hits me. Patricia. I know it's Patricia. I got home in 20 minutes. There were already 3 police cars on our street. Jessica was sitting on the curb, completely broken, sobbing into her hands. Neighbors were giving statements. It was chaos. I ran up to Jessica, and we just held each other. I've never felt so helpless in my life. The police asked us for a description of the woman. Jessica described her mid-40s, brown hair, business clothes. Then I told them about Patricia, about the HOA harassment, the vandalism, the threats. One of the officers looked at me and said, "You think the HOA president is involved?" I know she is. They took down Patricia's information and said they'd follow up, but I wasn't waiting. I called our lawyer, and he told me to give the police everything we had, every email, every text, every piece of documentation about Patricia's harassment. Within an hour, the police were at Patricia's house. She denied everything. Said she had no idea what they were talking about. But here's the thing. The woman who took Zoe, she wasn't some random stranger. The cops ran the plates on the silver Honda. It was registered to Patricia's daughter, Michelle Hendricks. And when they brought Michelle in for questioning, she broke immediately, told them everything. Patricia had hired her own daughter to impersonate a county official, break into our house, and take Zoe to teach us a lesson about paying our HOA fees. Are you kidding me? This woman committed kidnapping over $347. Michelle led the cops to where Zoe was at Patricia's house, in a crib in the guest bedroom. Zoe had been gone for 3 hours. When the police brought her back to us, Jessica and I just collapsed. We were both crying, holding her. I've never felt relief like that in my life. But the cops weren't done. Because what Patricia and Michelle did wasn't just kidnapping. It was federal kidnapping. Here's where it gets even crazier. Because Zoe was taken across state lines, Michelle had driven to Nevada with her, before bringing her to Patricia's house. Trying to avoid a quick Amber Alert, the FBI got involved. This wasn't just a local crime anymore. This was a federal kidnapping case. Patricia and Michelle were both arrested that same day. Patricia was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, child endangerment, burglary, and about 6 other charges. Michelle got hit with kidnapping, impersonating a government official, and breaking and entering. The bail hearing was insane. Patricia tried to claim she was just trying to scare us into paying our fees. The judge wasn't having it. He denied bail, called her a danger to the community, and she's been in federal custody ever since. Michelle took a plea deal. She testified against her mom in exchange for a reduced sentence. She got 8 years. Patricia. She went to trial, and the jury took less than 4 hours to convict her on all counts. She was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. 22 years for kidnapping a baby over HOA fees. The HOA dissolved. After this, the management company dropped them, and the entire board resigned. Turns out Patricia had been embezzling HOA funds for years. Over $80,000. That's a whole separate federal case. As for us, we stayed in the house for another year while the criminal trials were happening. But after everything, we couldn't stay there. Too many bad memories. We sold it last summer and moved to a neighborhood with no HOA. We also got a settlement from the HOA's insurance company. Can't say how much, but it was enough to cover all our legal fees, therapy for Jessica, and a down payment on a new house. Zoe's 3 now. She's happy, healthy, and has no memory of any of this. Thank God, but Jessica and I, we're still processing it. You don't just get over someone kidnapping your child. Here's what I learned from all of this. 1. Never underestimate how far a petty person will go when they have even a little bit of power. Patricia could have just filed a lien. Instead, she committed a federal crime to document everything. Every email, every interaction, every threat. That documentation is what got Patricia convicted. And 3. Trust your gut. Jessica and I knew something was off with Patricia from the start. We should have pushed harder, filed complaints earlier, gotten that restraining order sooner. But most importantly, HOAs are not your friends. They're not neighborhood organizations. They're power structures. And when the wrong person is in charge, they can ruin your life. Patricia's in prison now, and she'll be there for a long time. But the damage she caused, that's permanent. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If you've got your own HOA horror story, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more insane stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Also, if you're in an HOA and you're being harassed, document everything and get a lawyer. Don't wait. Don't assume it'll just blow over. These people are relentless. Alright, I'll catch you in the next video. Stay safe out there. And remember, always read the fine print before you buy a house in an HOA. Because that $300 fee, it might cost you way more than you bargained for.